Why are so many of the kitchen knives designed to make you fail? That turns the funnest thing about cooking into a chore, something you hate, that you're scared of because you might hurt yourself. And then you're frustrated and nothing's going right and you just wanted to make something nice for yourself for once and you can't do it. Why did you even try? But it's okay. It's not your fault. These guys were setting you up to fail. Why do we have to choose? Why can we not have knives that are functional, that look amazing, and yet don't need to pay an arm and a leg for? These knives should be able to last you a lifetime, and that's why we designed the VKS the way we did, because we want to make a kitchen knife that's actually meant to teach you how to use knives the correct way. We are not going to design knives and bring everything down to the lowest common denominator. You're better than that. I think these are probably the most common sort of knives that you see around. One of the things that you'll see a lot about these kind of knives is you'll see them talking about German steel. Back in the day, that was good. In like the 1950s, in like the 1960s. We have advanced so far in steel technology since then. It is old, outdated steel. You'll hear things like high carbon German steel, high carbon stainless steel. Even the most basic of steels is going to be high carbon. This is the same kind of marketing term that's been used for 50 years and we're still falling for it. This steel, by the way, is called X50 CrMOV15, which X standing for the carbon content, CR standing for the chromium content, MO meaning molybdenum, and V meaning vanadium. And the numbers are corresponded to the percentages in that steel, which chromium of 13% or more makes a blade stainless, or more stain resistant, technically legally classified as stainless, I should say. These sound great. And then we look at VG10. The steel that we chose for the VKS is VG10. VG10 was a steel originally developed by Takefu in Japan, and it outclasses this German steel like just about every way. There's one thing that VG10 does not do better than this kind of steel, and that is in toughness. See, there's a big difference between toughness and hardness. Hardness is the amount of wear resistance. So think about sandpaper, pushing the edge against a hard surface, such as a cutting board. How long will it take to wear away? That's going to be your edge retention and how long your edge stays sharp. Now, toughness seems very similar to hardness, and yeah, I understand it's a little tough, but toughness is how much it can take a beating, and that's going to be how hard you're slamming it before it chips, how hard you're slamming it before it breaks. And this German X50 CrMOV15 steel is better at toughness when it is less hard. Now, here, we like it harder. And there is actually an objective scale of hardness that we can use to help us determine edge retention. There's a lot of other factors that go into edge retention, for instance, how much vanadium and chromium, other carbides, and other materials are in there. But at the baseline level of heat treatment, we can use hardness in order to figure out how much edge retention it has. Most knives like this are only going to be hardened to about 54 HRC, sometimes to about 56. If you're really lucky, some of the higher end ones are going to go to about 58, maybe. These knives and the other ones we made are going to be going up to 61 HRC. That is significantly harder with significantly better edge retention. Now, the big thing is, why does toughness and full tang not matter? This design is meant for the hammer grip. That's why it curves out over here. It's meant for you to hold it like this. This isn't how you hold a knife. This is how you hold a hammer. We don't chop like this. We don't prepare food like this. You have no control over the knife like this. And with less control of the knife, that's how you can potentially cut yourself. That's how you can potentially injure yourself. You shouldn't be swinging knives like a hammer. This is not how you use knives. Do not use knives like this in the kitchen! No hammer gripping! These knives are fundamentally built with the assumption that you're going to use it the wrong way. That you're going to be using a hammer grip and slamming it down like a caveman. No hammer gripping! They have a full tang that increases the weight for no good reason. Full tangs exist for the pure reason of expecting you to hammer on it to break the blade. That's also why you have these extremely thick welded bolsters on here as well. And even worse, these thick welded bolsters and this bolster heel right here is going to make it near impossible for you to actually maintain and sharpen this knife. These are all different knives, supposedly with different qualities. So when you get a knife like this, you're subject to a terrible experience where it doesn't stay sharp very long, it doesn't cut well, it wedges through things. The thinner the edge, the sharper the edge, and the nicer it will feel. So that's what we did with the VKS, with 2.25 millimeters at the spine and 0.3 millimeters behind the edge. We were thinking about bringing it down even more. One of the things I was thinking about was bringing it down to 2 millimeters around the spine, and then flat ground down to 0.2 millimeters, or even down to like 0.15 millimeters. But we did actually end up deciding against that, because for a starter knife meant to teach beginners, the edge alignment when you press down with the blade is not going to be the best. While we are designing this knife to be used correctly, I do understand that there's going to be a learning curve to the techniques involved. And that means that as you're learning the knife, as you are figuring out how to use it correctly, then there will be little problems here and there. Having a slightly thicker knife, but not like absurdly thick like a lot of those others, means that there's more give as to mistakes being made without the knife having problems. This isn't my first knife design. I've done a lot of other knives before, and because of those, we've seen the comments that have rolled in about people who have managed to shatter knives, to have chips and breaks, and then blame us for it. I can take a lot of stuff on the internet, but when there's something that you poured your heart and soul into, something that you've designed and are really proud of, and then you see people mistreating it, you see people using it in ways that it really shouldn't be used, and then after that telling you you're a terrible designer, you don't know what you're doing, these are awful knives, and it takes everything you have to not get frustrated. And if those messages start coming in 5 and 10 and hundreds, I know why so many companies continue to make knives like these, and I can't blame them for it either. Who can sit there and continue to be told that you're doing everything wrong? At some point, they're right. If they've never been taught to use a knife properly, if they've never learned, they don't know how or where to get these resources, then you can't blame them. Of course they're going to feel like that. And I thought, what can I do to make that not a problem? But there's plenty of resources out there. There's YouTube videos, there's articles, there's all kinds of things everywhere. And if that's the case, then why haven't they learned? And so we thought more and more about that. What started as just wanting to make knives for myself started to turn into something different. How can we make a unique experience that encourages people to learn, that they learn without even knowing it? And that's when the seeds of Project VKS was planted, because I knew that people learn better with stories, with context, with things to remember it by. And so I guess you could summarize Project VKS as knives and cooking skills delivered in a fun and interesting anime-ish story with a living world and a story that you can participate in. You would have something that's more akin to a main quest. So when you receive the box of the knives and cutting boards and everything else, you would have a FeedTech manual, which is the canonical manual given to FeedTechs of FeedHub VK24601. And from there, that begins to tell you the story of what happened and how this world works. In this cyberpunk world, you'll be introduced to a cast of messed up characters who are just trying to figure out how to be human in a world that tries to take everything away from them. With that, you'll start your culinary journey and go through all of the quests that make up the main skill trees and the skill line of that particular knife and that particular season or that particular chapter. So what you do in these quests, in the recipes that you're making, are being done in the story itself and has impacts on what is happening all around you. It's going to break the fourth wall from the other way, allowing you to interact with this world that's supposed to exist on the other side of the screen. And even when you're done with that season's chapter and story, you'll be able to access the living story, which is basically the end game content and is going to be the Twitter posts, the Instagram posts, the website that's constantly running where real-time events will be happening, and the amount of people joining things, succeeding in the things that they do or not succeeding will influence what happens in this living story. And we have so many cool plans for that, from community-based events to large events and competitions where your knife skills and everything that you've learned will be tested and will affect how the living story progresses. By the time you're done learning, you won't even know you've gotten
as good as you've gotten. And you'll probably have my problem, which is you keep running out of things to cut, and then you just start stacking and have piles of diced onions and tomatoes and things, and people keep going, oh God, Tim, please stop chopping onions, stop chopping tomatoes, we have enough salsa fresca, you can't keep doing this, Tim, please. Every single knife that we release is going to have its own story season and story chapters. It's going to be attached to a character, and it's going to be attached to their character arc and their storyline. And you'll see why they use that specific knife, why that knife was special to them, and how they used it. There's going to be live stories, illustrations, animations, full story arcs for you to enjoy and take part of, even if you're not cutting things at that particular moment. I'm sure some of you want to know more about the knife itself and why it looks the way it does. This knife is based off of a very old design I had, actually the very first one I had ever done. One of the issues of the knife design itself was in its manufacturing. In order to keep a knife more affordable, in order to make something that is beautiful but also functional and also at a good price point, you have to design it in a way that works well for manufacturing. Having a lot of different grinds and different parts and different curves and angles to it could make it better in a lot of ways. And you'll see a lot of high-end customs do that. But if we were to be designing a knife like a high-end custom, well, let's say there is a reason why high-end customs cost as much as they do. Before, I didn't have those skills. I didn't have the understanding of manufacturing and really the process and operations side of things. Now, because I have started my own noodle company, because we manufacture the ramen ourselves, in a facility that I built from the ground up myself, I'm on the line myself to figure out how do we make this part just a little bit faster? How do we make this more efficient? How do we do this without making it so people are going to completely destroy their hands and their back and their knees while working this? I apply those to my knife design too, to look cool and to still keep it cost effective in manufacturing. How do we streamline the steps? So now with more experience in knife building and knife design, understand that using a K-tip or a Kurutsuke tip like this, where it cuts down immediately, and we just thin out significantly towards the tip, creates a very similar effect. With the Kurutsuke tip design, you also cut lower into the blade profile, where you might see a Western knife have a tip higher over here, or a Gyoto have a tip here and curve downwards instead, which allows for a larger rock chop. We decided to go with a more middling level instead. By having a little bit of a cutout over here, it distributes the weights differently along here and here, allowing for an easier and better rock chop. This is a very subtle sort of thing, but can be felt when you're actually using the knife. This allows us to have the best of both worlds. This is meant to be a starter knife, so we wanted to design something that was able to do the Western rock chopping style, as well as the push cut and more straight cutting style that the Japanese chefs tend to favor. This means we still do have that curve upwards and that belly on the knife to allow for the rock chopping, but we have a flatter edge across the bottom and the butt of the knife over here towards the choil, where it's a lot flatter in nature, and so you can do. That's why we also chose to bring the heel and the choil out as far as it is, because this gives you a lot more length on the blade to allow for that chopping style while still being able to do the rock chopping. This also allows you to have fewer hanging cuts, because when you rock back, instead of a problem where a lot of people have where they're gripping on their knife and then their fingers, especially beginners, are planted here and then the butt of the knife is just a little bit forwards. A lot of people end up having these hanging cuts because they expect the knife to be where their fingers are. By having the swoop in the back, that allows for a significantly less amount of that to happen. I've heard some people go, oh, this is gonna catch on things, I'm gonna hurt myself with it. You should not be holding a knife in any way, shape, or form in which your fingers are getting close to there, or where you are in a position where you can potentially hurt yourself. No hammer grip me! This knife is specifically designed for the two styles of grip that should be used for almost everything. The pinch grip, where you're pinching directly on the blade itself, and actually this mark is a very good indicator of where you should be pinching. And the forefinger grip, which is exceptionally good for slicing and other tasks that require long strokes and long motions. The pinch grip is the kind of grip used by chefs at Michelin star restaurants all across the world, because the pinch grip is the way to hold the knife that gives you the most control over the knife. And please, stop using the hammer grip. No hammer grip me! It tires your hand out, and it doesn't transfer the downwards force very well. And if you have big hands like me, that's where your knuckles are going to be constantly touching the board. I want to show you a knife that is lightweight, that feels good in your hand, that has the proper edge geometry. I've seen people talk about the butt over here and, oh, this is going to be a little sharp. And once again, what are you doing that you are jamming this? If you're doing it harder than that, what are you doing that's happening? Because this knife is angled, the butt will not be contacting your forearm. And that's all about using it properly. No hammer grippy! This knife is designed to be perfect for someone who is trying to learn how to use knives and how to get into cooking. What we're offering is a full starter kit that really gives you everything you need to get started in the kitchen, all the tools at a great price that will last a lifetime, provided you take care of it. But don't worry, we're gonna teach you that too. As an aside, I've also had someone say, oh, well, the handle doesn't look like it will have the most grip. How will you design this handle so that I can keep a grip while my hands are going to be wet and oily and slippery? And my answer to you for that is, don't use sharp objects while your hands are slippery. These are sharp! If your hands are covered in oil or water or something, clean it off before you use the knife. Things should not be squishing and exploding and otherwise going everywhere. When you cut with a good knife, it goes through cleanly, and this hand holding the knife should not be touching the cutting board at the same time. I've seen some other people also say this cutout does make it harder to clean the knife. I can't just wipe across the knife. That is actually a little bit on purpose too. We actually had a consideration of if we wanted to specifically make this part smoother in order to make it easier to wipe. We can, for instance, have it sand down or ground down and buffed out so that, you know, when you're wiping, it just goes smoothly across. We actually ended up deciding against that. It doesn't actually add much, if any, cost to the blade production. However, one of the most prominent injuries with knives is not necessarily cutting yourself when you're using it, but I've seen so many people when they're cleaning it, put their fingers over the edge and then wipe. Especially when you're tired, especially when you're trying to rush. This motion and doing it fast is probably one of the greatest injuries. So we actually ended up leaving a little more on the, I mean, it's not sharp, but it's not filed down, it's not ground down, it's not smooth, so that you do need to be careful when you are polishing or wiping this down. So instead of just going whoosh and then accidentally cutting yourself, you are forced to take it slow. You're forced to use a circular motion and go little by little, which forces you to be mindful about what you're doing around knives, forces you to have to think about what you're doing and to treat the knife with care and respect and not cut yourself while you're cleaning it. Other weird questions I've been also asked is this dishwasher safe? Absolutely not. Never put a knife in the dishwasher. What are you doing? I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that this knife is going to be the greatest thing you've ever owned and you will not ever find a better knife than this ever. What I'm going to tell you is exactly what this knife is, where it's good, where it's not, and why other knives of higher price points are going to be better than. Because what I want you to do is I want you to learn, I want you to respect knives and enjoy knives and to be able to know what is good, what is bad, and to be able to educate yourself about it and learn while having fun. This knife is designed to be the best price point and the best design you can get for your value. It's designed in a way that makes it fun, makes it nice to look at, makes it something that you can proudly show off and feel cool while using it. Each and every one of these handles are going to be slightly different. These are all made and polished by hand. When they're assembled, there's going to be slight differences in thickness, slight differences in variation. This handle is actually designed for manufacturing efficiency as well. It is an octagonal wah handle, so this is a handle that is designed after the Japanese octagonal wah handle, but you'll find it is a little bit different from the traditional handle because it is actually thicker towards the butt and thinner towards the handle, and that gives it a flare, which makes it look a little cooler. But most importantly, it does actually give a little bit better on the grip because then your pinky finger and your ring finger don't have to grip in as much as it extends out towards the back. This relatively circular design also allows this handle to be very ambidextrous in nature. So whether you're left-handed or right-handed, this knife will work for you. The 8 sides and 8 faces aren't all completely even. We have a larger top face, which allows it to be a lot more comfortable for something like the 4-finger grip. The wider flat top aligns with the spine, which allows it to be very good for the 4-finger grip and allows it to be comfortable there, giving you plenty of room for that finger to rest and more control there. The sides and the bottom are a little wider as well to make it a little bit more like a rectangle to fit better with the natural finger grooves and give you a good grip while you're able to use and handle the knife. We were thinking about doing some other grinds as well, but in the end, this full flat grind is going to keep the knife price at a good point and is going to be easy to sharpen and maintain. Overall, this knife is a all-rounder. It is a chef knife that is capable of basically anything I throw at it, but just don't slam it on things and it'll take care of you. This will be able to go through vegetables and meat. And if you're careful on it and you want to be choking up on the knife, you can be using it in order to do things like debone as well. The VKP is a very similar knife. It is also VG10, but goes down to closer to a 0.25 at the edge. Some might look at this design and go, well, that handle looks a little missized. If you look, the handle is almost as large as the full-size knife. And this is actually where that tapered handle design does help as well. You have this taper along the front over here, which makes it smaller, and then it goes across to the back where you have a stronger grip if you want to be using it like this. This choil actually goes outward instead, and that's so you can choke up a little bit more and have some better control on the peeling. Because paring knives, primarily, you're not going to be like chopping on a board like this. Instead, you want to be able to have fine thumb control. So if you do have a little bit more of this recession and choil here, then you can be doing significantly finer motions. So this is almost like doing a pinch grip. So this is a very thin spear point design. When you feel this knife, you'll see it's different from any other knife you've ever felt. And that will be true with every single knife. It's something called kiriyaji, or the flavor of the cut. Whatever knife that you have right now can probably prep and it can probably do the things that you need it to. But just like how a cheap frozen burger from the gas station is still technically a burger, it won't compare against even a burger from a fast food place. And those fast food burgers won't compare to the restaurant down the street that has been making burgers for 25 years with love and care, with a cherished recipe passed down from generation to generation. And that will be a completely different experience from the ones made directly by Michelin star chefs with A5 Wagyu, where you're starting to pay more for the artistry and the skill than the actual flavor. And the same goes with knives. The flavor of the cut, how the cut feels, how the knife goes through things. Any number of the different kinds of knives, the different kinds of techniques, and the different kinds of cuts out there, and the different flavors that you can experience. And that's why I'm so excited about this, because I can share with you all the flavors that I have known about, the flavors of the cut, the flavors of the cooking, everything that I have learned, all the joys that I can share. When I love something, when I'm passionate about something, I want to share it with people. I want to share my joy. I want to share what excites me. I want to share everything that I've learned, everything that I've tasted and felt, all the things that brought me joy. And I want to share that with you in all the ways that I've experienced. And I want to teach you better than the ways that I have been taught. I want to teach you in a way that is enjoyable, that you remember, that allows you to be proud of the things that you're doing, to have fun with the knives and to have fun with cooking. And I want to teach you through story. I want to teach you through characters, and maybe even through these characters in the world we write. Maybe you'll find out a little bit more about yourself. Maybe I'll find out a little bit more about myself, because that's the power of story. That's the beautiful thing about storytelling. There is so much that we have planned that I want to show you. This is Project VKS. This is a new way of learning, a new way of cooking and experiencing, and nice skills and everything you could have wanted to learn. I can't do this alone. I want to know what you want to learn. I want to know what you're interested in. I want to know what knives you want to see next. I want to know what tools, what techniques, what skills, even what characters you like, what kind of writing you like. Do you want to see videos live action? Do you want to see 2D animation, 3D animation? Let me know what you want. So go to BackerKit right now and back Project VKS. Find us on Vite Ramen or Vite Kitchens or Project VKS. And I guess this can serve as a little time capsule too of when this all started. And maybe we'll be able to look back here in a few years, and we'll look and we'll laugh and we'll think about what it was at the very start.
I want to make things so amazing for you. I want to make it fun for you. I want to make it something you're looking forward to each and every single time.
So join Project BKS and let's play with knives.